My mother pushed me into oncoming cars while 6 months pregnant for not leaving my marriage. You pushed me into the street. I'm 6 months pregnant. You should have thought about that before you defied me. If you won't leave Nicholas, then maybe losing that baby will teach you some respect. Mom, there are cars coming. I don't care. My mother pushed me into oncoming traffic while 6 months pregnant because I refused to leave my marriage. I'm Paisley. But before I continue, please like, share, and subscribe to hear more stories like this. I never thought my own mother would try to kill me and my unborn child. But that's exactly what happened on a busy downtown street corner when I was 29 years old and 6 months pregnant with my first baby. Let me back up. My name is Paisley Monroe, and I grew up in Portland with my parents, Gerald and Victoria, and my older brother, Garrett. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family. My dad worked as an architect. My mom was a mortgage broker, and Garrett was the golden child who could do absolutely no wrong. Me? I was the daughter who never quite measured up to her impossible standards. My mom had this suffocating obsession with control. She decided what I wore, who I could talk to, what activities I could join. When I was 17, she made me quit the volleyball team because one of the other girls had divorced parents she didn't approve of. When I was 19 and got accepted to University of Washington, she convinced me to stay local and attend community college instead because she needed me close by. I was too young and too manipulated to say no. Looking back now, I can see the toxic pattern so clearly. Every friend I made, Mom found something wrong with them. Kayla was too rebellious. Morgan came from a poor neighborhood. Taylor wore too much makeup. One by one, my friendships withered because dealing with Mom's constant criticism and surprise visits was exhausting. She had this twisted way of making me feel guilty for wanting any kind of independence. If I stayed out past 9 o'clock, she'd call sobbing about how terrified she was, how she couldn't sleep, how I was literally killing her with stress. If I didn't answer her texts within 5 minutes, she'd show up wherever I was. Once she tracked my phone location and appeared at a movie theater because I'd silenced my phone during the previews. My dad never said a word. He'd just disappear behind his newspaper or find some excuse to hide in his workshop. Garrett learned early that agreeing with Mom meant an easier life, so he'd join in too. They'd gang up on me at dinner, criticizing everything from my job prospects to my clothes to my posture. I met Nicholas Hutchins when I was 25 at a bookstore where I was working part-time. He was patient, respectful, and treated me like I actually mattered as a human being. We dated for 2 years before he proposed, and my mother despised him from the very first day. He's not good enough for you, she'd say constantly, which was laughable coming from someone who'd spent my entire life telling me I wasn't good enough for anything. What's wrong with him? I'd ask, desperate to understand. He's just not right. He doesn't earn enough money. His family is weird. You can do so much better than him. Nicholas made a solid living as a veterinary technician. His family was warm and genuinely normal. The real problem was that my mom couldn't control him, and by extension, couldn't control me when I was with him. The first time Nicholas stood up to her was at a family cookout. Mom had been making cutting comments about my weight all afternoon, disguised as concern. Nicholas finally said calmly, "Victoria, Paisley looks beautiful. Maybe we could change the subject." The look on my mother's face was absolute fury. She didn't speak to either of us for the rest of the day, then called me that night screaming about how disrespectful and rude Nicholas was to her. We got married anyway in a small ceremony at a botanical garden. My mom showed up wearing black like she was attending a funeral, and spent the entire reception telling anyone who'd listened that I was making the biggest mistake of my life. My dad just looked uncomfortable and stayed silent. Like always. Garrett sided with Mom, naturally, calling Nicholas a deadbeat even though Garrett himself was living in our parents' guest house at 33 years old. Things got exponentially worse after the wedding. My mom would call me 20 times a day. She'd show up at our townhouse unannounced, sometimes letting herself in with a key I didn't know she'd copied. She demanded Nicholas and I come to family dinners 4 times a week, where she'd spend every minute attacking him. "Nicholas, don't you think you should be earning more by now? Nicholas, when are you going to get a real career? Nicholas, I noticed your Honda has a scratch on it. Can't even maintain your vehicle properly, can you? Nicholas handled it better than I ever could. He just smiled politely and changed the subject, but I could see it draining him. One night after a particularly vicious dinner, he held both my hands and said, "Paisley, I love you more than anything, but we need to establish serious boundaries with your mom. This situation isn't healthy for either of us." He was absolutely right, but I was terrified of the fallout. The worst part was that my dad and Garrett would just sit there nodding along with whatever poison my mom was spewing. Dad would occasionally mumble, "Now Victoria, go easy," but it was pathetically half-hearted at best. Garrett actively enjoyed watching the show, smirking every time Mom landed a particularly brutal insult. I tried setting boundaries. I genuinely tried. I told Mom she needed to call before visiting. She showed up anyway and threw a screaming fit when I wouldn't unlock the door. I told her the constant attacks on Nicholas needed to stop immediately. She cried and accused me of choosing a man over my own mother. I reduced our family dinners to once a week. She told everyone I was abandoning and neglecting the family. When I got pregnant, I was absolutely thrilled. Nicholas was over the moon with excitement. I waited until I was 3 months along to tell my family, because I knew it would be complicated and messy. I was right. "You're pregnant?" My mom said when I told her over dinner at their house. Her face went pale, then red. "Are you completely insane?" "Mom, we are married. We want children. This is a good thing." "A good thing? You can barely take care of yourself, Paisley. And with Nicholas as the father? That poor child doesn't stand a chance in this world." My dad sliced his salmon and said absolutely nothing. Garrett laughed cruelly and said, "Yeah, good luck with that disaster." "We're excited," I said firmly, trying to keep my voice steady, "and would really appreciate your support." "Support?" My mom stood up from the table, her chair scraping loudly. "I'll tell you what I support. I support you leaving that worthless loser and coming back home where you belong. Raise the baby here with people who actually care about your well-being. Nicholas cares about me. Nicholas is a parasite. He trapped you with this pregnancy. Can't you see what he's done to you?" I left that dinner sobbing. Nicholas held me that whole night and promised everything would be okay. But my mom's campaign of terror didn't stop. It got worse. She started sending me articles about successful single mothers who'd thrived without men. She'd text me things like, "It's never too late to make the right choice for yourself and your baby." She told my extended family that Nicholas was abusive and controlling, which was a complete fabrication. My Aunt Sharon called me crying hysterically, begging me to leave him for my safety. When I explained that Mom was lying, Aunt Sharon didn't believe me. "Your mother wouldn't lie about something this serious," she insisted. Mom even called Nicholas' workplace trying to get him fired. She told his supervisor that Nicholas was mentally unstable and dangerous around animals. Fortunately, Nicholas' supervisor Dr. Hayes knew him well enough to dismiss it entirely, but it was absolutely mortifying. Nicholas came home that day looking exhausted and deeply hurt. "Your mom called the clinic today," he said quietly, sitting down heavily. "What did she say?" "She told Dr. Hayes I was violent and that you were afraid of me." He laughed it off because he knows me, but Paisley, this is spiraling out of control. "I know. I'm so sorry. You don't have to apologize for her choices, but we need to do something concrete. This can't continue, especially with our baby coming." The real explosion happened when I was 6 months pregnant. My mom had been calling me all morning, and I'd been ignoring her calls because I had an ultrasound appointment. She knew about the appointment because I'd casually mentioned it the previous week. After the appointment, Nicholas had to drive straight to an emergency call at the clinic. So I decided to grab lunch at a deli downtown. I was walking down Morrison Street looking at my phone with my ultrasound pictures when I heard her voice behind me. "Paisley." I turned around and saw my mom storming toward me. She looked absolutely furious, her face twisted with rage. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I went to your townhouse. Nicholas said you were at the doctor's office. Why didn't you tell me you were going?" "I did tell you last week. You didn't invite me to come with you today." "Mom, it was just a routine checkup. Nicholas came with me." "Of course he did. He's isolating you from your family. Can't you see what he's doing to you? People on the sidewalk were starting to stare at us. I felt my face getting hot with embarrassment. He's not isolating me. You're suffocating me. There's a huge difference. Don't you dare speak to me that way. I'm your mother. I gave you life and I can. You can what? That's when she grabbed my arm hard, her fingernails digging into my skin. You need to leave him now. Today. Pack your things and come home with me. I'm not leaving my husband. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. She started pulling me aggressively. I tried to jerk away, but her grip was ironclad. We were right at the corner of Morrison and 4th Avenue, a busy intersection with heavy traffic. You're coming with me right now, she hissed through clenched teeth. Let go of me. That's when she shoved me hard with both hands. I stumbled backward off the curb and into the street. There was a silver Camry coming fast. I remember the sound of the horn blaring, the screech of brakes, someone screaming. I fell hard onto the pavement and everything happened in terrifying slow motion. The car stopped inches from my body. The driver jumped out, absolutely panicked. Are you okay? Oh my God. Are you okay? Please be okay. I was on my hands and knees in the middle of the street, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would explode. My pregnant belly had hit the ground. I looked up through tears and saw my mother standing on the sidewalk, her face twisted with rage, not concern or fear. Not maternal instinct. Just pure hatred. You pushed me into the street. I'm 6 months pregnant. You should have thought about that before you defied me. If you won't leave Nicholas, then maybe losing that baby will teach you some respect. Mom, there are cars. I don't care. The driver who'd almost hit me was already calling 911. A crowd had gathered around us. Someone was recording everything on their phone. My mother seemed to suddenly realize she'd crossed a line because she abruptly changed her expression to fake concern. Sweetie, I didn't push you. You stumbled and lost your balance. Let me help you up. Don't touch me, I said, my voice shaking uncontrollably. The ambulance arrived within minutes. The paramedics checked me over carefully. Miraculously, the baby was fine, and so was I physically. Just scraped palms and a bruised knee. But I was shaken to my absolute core. The paramedic, a compassionate woman named Gloria, held my hand gently and said, Honey, we see a lot of things in this job, but what your mama just did, that's not normal family conflict. That's not okay. The police took detailed statements from everyone. The driver confirmed my mom had deliberately pushed me. 2 other witnesses confirmed it too. One of them sent me the video they'd taken. It clearly showed my mother shoving me into oncoming traffic with force. My mom tried desperately to spin it. She's being dramatic and hormonal. She lost her balance. I was trying to steady her and keep her safe. But the evidence was undeniable. The video showed everything. Her grabbing me trying to pull away, and then the deliberate, violent shove. The police told me I could press charges for assault and reckless endangerment. I was terrified of the consequences, but I did it. My own mother was charged with assault and reckless endangerment of a pregnant woman. Nicholas met me at the hospital. When I told him exactly what happened, he went completely pale. She could have killed you both, he whispered, holding me carefully like I might break. I know. We are pressing charges, right? Yes. We have to. Good. This nightmare ends now. My dad called me that same night. Paisley, honey, you need to drop the charges against your mother. She didn't mean it. She's just worried about you and overwhelmed. She pushed me into traffic. Dad. I could have lost the baby. I could have died right there. She was emotional and overwhelmed. You know how she gets sometimes. Family doesn't press charges against family. That's not how we handle things. Family doesn't try to murder family either. He hung up on me without another word. Garrett sent me a string of vicious texts, calling me a vindictive witch and saying I was tearing the family apart for attention. According to him, I was destroying Mom's life over an accident. I blocked both of them immediately. My mom hired an expensive lawyer and tried to fight the charges aggressively. Her attorney painted me as a rebellious, lying daughter making up dramatic stories for sympathy. But the video evidence was absolutely damning. You could hear her words clearly on the recording. "If you won't leave Nicholas, then maybe losing that baby will teach you some respect." The court case took 3 long months. During that time, my mom tried every manipulation tactic possible. She had Garrett call me repeatedly, begging me to reconsider and be reasonable. She had flying monkeys from her social circle reach out, telling me I was being cruel and vindictive. She even had her pastor call, despite me not attending that church in years, asking me to show Christian forgiveness and mercy. I stood firm through all of it. My mom accepted a plea deal, anger management classes, 2 years of probation, and a restraining order keeping her at least 500 feet away from me at all times. But that wasn't the end of her campaign. My mom started a vicious whisper campaign throughout her professional network. She told everyone at her mortgage company that I was an ungrateful, lying daughter who'd fabricated the entire incident. She told our relatives that I was mentally unstable and that Nicholas was manipulating and controlling me. Some people believed her lies. My cousin Bethany stopped talking to me completely. My uncle Carl sent me a harsh letter saying I should be ashamed of destroying my mother's life and reputation. But others didn't buy it. My Aunt Sharon, after actually watching the video evidence, called me sobbing with apologies. My mom's younger sister, Aunt Rita, reached out and said she dealt with mom's controlling, abusive behavior for decades and believed me completely. Rita told me horrifying stories about growing up with my mom, about how she'd always been manipulative and cruel when she didn't get her way. When I was 18, I wanted to go to college out of state. Rita told me over coffee one afternoon. "Your mom told our parents I was using drugs. She actually planted pills in my room. I almost didn't get to go to college at all." She did what? That's who she is, Paisley. She can't stand anyone having a life she doesn't control. I'm sorry you had to learn it this way. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl 3 months later. We named her Violet. Nicholas and I made the decision not to tell my mom when I went into labor. We didn't want her anywhere near the hospital during this precious moment. But somehow she found out anyway. She showed up at the hospital and tried to force her way into my room. Security stopped her immediately because of the restraining order. She caused an enormous scene in the hallway, screaming about her rights as a grandmother and how we were keeping her from her flesh and blood. The hospital threatened to call the police and she finally left, still screaming. The nurse later told me Mom had been calling the maternity ward every single hour for 2 days straight trying to get information about me. After that terrifying incident, I changed my phone number completely. We moved to a different neighborhood across town. I made it crystal clear to any family members still in contact with me that if they gave my mother any information about us whatsoever, they'd be cut off too. Aunt Rita understood completely and became our only family connection on my side. Here's where karma started doing its beautiful work. My mom's mortgage broker career began falling apart rapidly. Word spread about what she'd done, partly because the local news had picked up the story. Mortgage broker charged with pushing pregnant daughter into traffic made for shocking headlines. Her professional reputation was destroyed. Clients cancelled their listings and applications. Her company quietly let her go to avoid the association. She tried to start her own independent business, but no one wanted to work with someone that unstable. She burned through her savings desperately trying to keep up appearances and maintain her lifestyle. Meanwhile, my dad, who'd enabled her abusive behavior for decades, finally filed for divorce. He told Aunt Rita he was exhausted from living with her poison, tired of pretending everything was normal when it clearly wasn't. "I should have protected you," Dad told me when we finally talked months after Violet was born. "I was a coward. I'm truly sorry. It was too little, too late, but I appreciated the acknowledgement of his failure." We built a careful, distant relationship after that conversation. Garrett, still living in the guest house, suddenly had to deal with Mom's full attention and control without me as the target. Without me to focus all her manipulation on, she turned every bit of it toward him. Within 2 months, he couldn't take it anymore and moved out hastily. He also went low contact with her. He never apologized to me directly, but Aunt Rita said he'd admitted privately that he finally understood what I'd been dealing with all those years. My mom ended up having to sell the family house she'd been so proud of showing off. She moved into a small studio apartment and got a job as a receptionist at a dentist's office. Her entire social circle evaporated completely. The friends who'd once admired her perfect family facade wanted absolutely nothing to do with her once they knew the truth. She tried reaching out through a lawyer, demanding visitation rights with Violet. We fought it hard in court and won decisively. The judge reviewed the restraining order, the assault charge, the video evidence, and her complete lack of remorse, and denied her petition entirely. The judge even noted in her written decision that my mother had shown zero accountability for her dangerous actions and posed a potential threat to the child's safety and well-being. Last I heard, she's completely alone. Garrett talks to her occasionally out of obligation, but even he keeps his distance now. My dad remarried a woman named Caroline who's gentle and kind, everything Mom wasn't. They occasionally babysit Violet, and seeing Dad be a loving grandfather has been healing in unexpected ways. Violet is now 3 years old and absolutely thriving. She'll never know the grandmother who tried to hurt her before she was even born. She'll never experience that toxicity. People sometimes ask me if I feel guilty about what happened to my mom. I don't. Not even a little bit. My mother made her choices deliberately. She chose control over love, manipulation over respect, and violence over acceptance. She destroyed her own life by refusing to let me live mine. Nicholas and I are doing wonderful. We bought a house with a backyard. I went back to school and got my teaching degree. I'm working at an elementary school now and love it. Our life isn't perfect, but it's genuinely ours. Built on mutual respect and actual love, not control and fear. If your parent tried to harm you and your unborn child out of spite, then faced major consequences that completely ruined their life, would you ever consider letting them back in? Or is some damage simply permanent and unforgivable? Let me know in the comments below.